All right. Good afternoon, evening. We'll go ahead and get started here. If you got your questions, go ahead and post them. Should be below the video if you are on a smaller screen like a phone. For a larger screen like a computer, it should be to the right of the video. All right. So it looks like we already got several questions in here. Awesome to see. We'll start with the question. It came in on Saturday, but we'll go ahead and start with that one. Um, Actually, you know what? I'll start with because I'm guessing this person isn't here. Jay Trout, if you are here, feel free to say in the comments that you're here. But I'll answer questions that for people that I think are actually here at the moment to start with. We'll come back to that if we got time. All right. So Greg T says, "Hi Q. My shot shape is what I would call an overdraw. The ball starts straight or to the left of the target and keeps going left. I had an instructor tell me to aim right of the target, but that is not a fix. I feel I am shallowing the club, but not sure if this is the problem or it's club face control. Any identifying the cause and a correction would be greatly appreciated." So, I would say it is a fix in itself. I mean, if you're someone who consistently gets that ball turning over, from right to left, right, and it's pretty consistently doing the same thing every time. I mean, I would say that is a fix, right? Now, if it's a situation where it overdraws sometimes, but then other times it goes straight or it fades, then that's not really a fix. But I mean, if you're consistently drawing the ball and you're just a drawer of the ball and I mean, that is a solution just to aim right. So just wanted to mention that. But it could be a combination of coming down a little bit steep. And also, it's definitely club face for sure, but it could also be a combination of the club coming down a little bit steep. So, yeah, working on the 20-minute shallowing fix, getting the ball to start to the right and curve to the left. The drill number one in the 20-minute shallowing fix, you're going to have no problem with because you're already getting the ball to turn over to the left. But I would just do that just for good measure. You're probably going to get the 10 in a row really easy, right? And then you're going to go to drill number two, where you're going to get the ball to start to the right and turn to the left. And that's going to ensure that you're shallowing out the club, and you'll get a feel for what it actually feels like to shallow out the club. And then in drill number three, that's where you dial it in, right? That's where you get it. That's where you learn what you need to do to get it dialed in, the feels and everything goes over. Clay goes over in that video. So if you want to check that out, click the instruction tab at the top of the screen, then go to the 20-minute shallowing fix from the drop down there. But I'm telling you, if you work through that, you're going to get your ball flight dialed in. Now, after that, what I would recommend doing is I would practice hitting different shot shapes in your practice. So that way you never get too far away from neutral, right? So if what you want is a pretty straight or a very slight ball flight or a very slight draw ball flight, if you want that to be fairly consistent, what you need to do is you need to practice hitting fades and draws in relatively straight shots. So that way you never get too far away from zero. If all you do is hit draw, 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 well, it can turn into an overdraw and then also a block miss. So we don't want that to happen. So you want to get a good feel for your face and your path. You want to practice hitting different shot shapes. Doesn't mean, I mean, you could hit every ball on the course a draw if you want. You can hit every single one as you want. There are high level elite golfers, a lot of them that do that. I would say the overwhelming majority of elite golfers really kind of stick to one shot shape mostly, because it's what they're comfortable with. But when they practice, they're hitting different shot shapes, right? Because we just don't want to get too far away from where neutral is. So that's what I would recommend doing to alleviate that. All right. So Greg T says, "Hi Q, my shot shape." Oh, that was the one we just answered. All right. So Bob L says, "Hi Q, while practicing at the range recently hitting driver, I've been able to hit some fairly straight drives and some with a favorable draw. However, when I've tried to go for more distance by increasing my shoulder turn, I end up hitting a massive hook. Is it possible to turn the shoulders too much, or is this likely being caused by something else like club path too much in to out, or club face or into out club face angle? Well, it really depends on. So what might be happening is that you might be turning in a way that's not allowing you to be able to make a good swing on the ball, and you can't turn too much, but you can do things in your swing that feel like turning that can throw off your face and path and things like that. So, so for example, one might be where we lose our spine angle. We get that reverse spine angle where our spine ends up leaning toward the target. Now, this does make our swing longer, and it will make you feel like you're turning more. But the reality is that you're just losing your spine angle, right? And when you lose your spine angle, you may tend to come down steep, and that could lead to the hook that you're talking about. When you kind of come over the top with a closed face, that's going to be a quick hook usually. So, so yeah, I would recommend taking a look at your swing on video to see what's going on there. But if you're going from, this was your turn before to now this is your turn, I'm maintaining my spine angle, but I'm just turning my body more. It could be a little bit of a timing thing. You're used to the timing of a shorter swing versus a longer swing. You probably just need to practice the longer swing more. But if you're getting yourself out of position, another thing that people do is they'll break down the arms a lot, right? So if you break down the arms too much, that can lead to that issue as well. So I would look at your swing on video, see for sure what's going on there, because that's the thing. We don't want to guess, right? We don't want to guess that we're coming down steep or not coming down steep or guess all these things. We can easily know these things by just getting out the video and just looking. So that's what I would recommend doing. But yeah, it depends on for sure what's going on there. But yeah, I mean, what's definitely happening is the face and path relationship and possibly the strike. When you don't hit the ball in the middle of the face, that also changes the shot shape quite a bit as well. So something is off there, but how you're getting there could be completely different, right? If it's just a timing thing and you're actually turning great, you just need more practice, or are we actually getting ourselves out of position and making it more difficult? Look on video to see for sure. So what I would say is if you're leaning toward the target and things like that, I try to make a bigger turn without doing that. Now, if it's a bigger turn and it's just our timing and things are off, then I just practice it some more. I'd maybe feel like you're hitting a slice, right? I'd make sure with the big turn that you're not coming over the top with it, right? You can look at that very easily by looking at it on video. All right, let's keep going. So John C says, hi, Q. I'm a right-handed golfer on the downswing with long irons and woods. My right shoulder has a tendency to push forward rather than down. Do you have any suggestions or drills to work on this? Thanks. Yes. So one could be what's called a shoulder-to-shoulder drill. So this would be where we would take a club or an alignment stick and put it on our shoulders. And when you put it on your shoulders, you want to make sure that it's nice and high on the shoulders, like up against your neck. You don't want it down here. If you hold it down here, you can kind of manipulate your arms and make the club point in places where your shoulders aren't really pointing. What we want to do is we want to know where the shoulders are pointing. So we need to put it on top of our shoulders so we can get a good feedback on that. So what we're going to do is we're going to get in our address position here, and then we're going to turn to the top, and we want that angle down. And then basically in the downswing, I want this end of the club to replace this end of the club, right? So that would look like this. Right? So see how I'm letting that replace when I'm going through. If we're going like this and then like that, you can see how that's not replacing it, right? Or if I'm kind of coming up and going like this and then like that, then my lead shoulder is too high as I get to the top. So the idea here is we want to have those shoulders remaining pretty much on the same plane throughout the entire swing, or the backswing and the downswing. After impact, you will see players staying pretty close to that, but then eventually they come up and around and get the shoulders level. Or actually, usually the lead shoulder ends up a little bit higher typically, or the trail shoulder, excuse me. But a good visual, and this is one that I often mention. It's from Ben Hogan's 5 Lessons book. he talked about the plane of glass. So basically what he imagined is that there was a plane of glass right here, and the plane of glass went from the ball and sat on top of his shoulders, right? So if you imagine if I'm in the address position here, so if I'm here with a ball, you can imagine a plane of glass going through that ball and then going and sitting on top of my shoulders here, and that my head was like going through a hole in the glass. It would almost look like a cornhole board or bags, depending on where you live is what you call it, right? So that's what Ben Hogan imagined his shoulders, the plane that his shoulders were on. So you see, if I went like this, then my lead shoulder would be going into it, right? If I went like this and then my shoulder went out, then my right shoulder would be going into it. What I want my shoulders to kind of remain on that plane of glass. Now, our shoulders are not going to be that steep, but I think that's a good exaggeration of a visual for a lot of people, especially those who kind of stand up out of it and then come out. So what we want is we want to keep those shoulders down, and then we want to keep those shoulders down throughout the entire process. All right, so Don D says, I struggle with ball and turf contact and have that course. I also struggle shallowing out the club. Which should I work on first before going to the other? I am lost in a decision, and the game is not good. I would go ball then turf first for a couple reasons. One is that if you're chunking the ball, that's more of a catastrophic miss than coming down a little bit steep. If you come down steep, you can still hit good golf shots. But if you're chunking the ball, you're gonna not hit great golf shots, right? So that's one reason. The other reason is because there is a little bit of shallowing mixed into that course that Clay talks about. So you're going to actually be kind of killing two birds with one stone there a little bit. So that's why I'd recommend the ball then turf course first, and then you can do the shallowing course as kind of a cherry on top to the whole thing. John M says, I went to the ball fitting class and my driver spin rate was 3,000. What do you recommend? Swing speed was 90. The ball fitting class. Well, I mean, the balls are pretty much the same for the most part. I mean, a low spinning ball is going to be, it's more, I would get something more, I would change your technique more. You can't really buy spin or buy, with the driver, all the golf balls are basically going to spin the same for the most part. It's not going to be like a big, huge difference. So and that's not even super high for spin. It's not too bad. 3,000. I mean, if you're anywhere in the 2,000s, that's usually pretty good. 3,000 is a little high. Like the PGA Tour average is like 2,600, right? So you're only 400 RPMs different than what a tour player is. And they have a lot more speed than 90, right? So 3,000, it may not necessarily be optimized, but it's not bad. Now, if you were like 4,000, 5,000, that's another thing, right? Maybe, because basically you'd want a harder golf ball, but there's some give and take with that. With a harder golf ball, it may spin a little less than like a Pro V1, but the problem is that it's going to be like a rock. It's going to feel, it's going to be hard to have a lot of good feel like around the greens. You want a golf ball, or at least I do, and I think most better players, professionals and things like that. You want a softer golf ball around the greens. It's just easier to control. If you have a very hard golf ball around the greens, it just doesn't. And also, it doesn't spin very well around the greens when it's harder. So if you want to have that chip that kind of has a little bit of spin on it, a little bit of stopping power, then I definitely don't recommend a hard golf ball. So, yeah, what I would recommend doing is maybe a lower lofted driver can help you to, I don't know if you hit the ball really high, but if you hit the ball really high, a lower lofted driver, or a lot of the drivers these days are adjustable, right? So you can actually adjust the loft on your driver to take off a little bit as well. That can lower the spin. Where you strike the ball in the face can lower the spin. So if you're hitting it low on the face, that can lead to some higher spin. If you're not, if you're hitting it on the toe, that can lead to some higher spin. If we get that ball just a hair above the center of the face, that's pretty ideal for spin numbers. I'm talking like a quarter of an inch, where the center of the strike's about quarter inch above the center of the face. That can help you to get that. There's also adjustability on drivers to raise and lower the spin a little bit, depending on the driver that you have. So, there's that option. There's the option of, changing your technique a little bit to, because let's talk about what gives you the spin, right? Spin is basically created by spin loft. A lot of it's equipment, softer golf balls and where you hit it on the face and things like that. But let's assume that we got a nice golf ball. We got a golf ball, basically any golf ball that a pro uses. That's basically, I don't get too much in the weeds on golf balls. It's not going to make that big of a difference for the overwhelming majority of golfers. I will tell you right now, like, I'm a not quite a scratch golfer anymore. I don't play as much. I'm like a 2 handicap now, and I can't tell you the difference between a Pro V1. Like if you did a blind test, you didn't put any of the labels on it. I couldn't tell you the difference between Pro V1, a TaylorMade TP5, basically any golf ball that a tour player uses. I most likely would not be able to tell you the difference if I couldn't actually see the golf ball, right? And I would say I have pretty good feel for things. The overwhelming majority of golf now, a Tiger Woods or somebody like that, they're going to be able to notice little nuances and things like, because their feel is so finely tuned. But they're like the 0.1% of people, right? So I wouldn't get too much in the weeds about the golf balls. It really just does not make that big of a difference. What I say is that any golf ball that a tour player uses, like in tournament play, that would be a golf ball that I would recommend that you use, right? Because all of those golf balls are going to be long off the tee, meaning they won't spin a ton, right? And then they're also going to be soft around the greens, and they're going to have that spin, right? They're going to have those two together. Now, I will say that some of those golf balls can get expensive. There are less expensive options. In fact, MaxFly, they kind of just came out in the past year or so. I can't remember how long, but they're at Dick's and Golf Galaxy. I don't have any affiliation with them, but I tried, some I can't remember what golf ball it was, but they have some new, and they're pretty good. They're pretty, and they're not expensive. They're not very expensive. I can't remember how much they were, but they're a lot less expensive. The Snell golf balls are a good, inexpensive option. I know that's not a golf. I know a MaxFly ball is, and the Snell balls are not balls that tour players use, but they're comparable. And part of the reason why they can be cheaper is because they don't pay any tour players to use their balls, and that's on purpose, right? So yeah, those would be some less expensive ones that I would recommend. We actually have a video that we did quite a while ago. Here, let me see if I can find that. I would recommend that you watch this video. Let me do a quick search. And for those of you who aren't familiar, the website has a search engine on it. If you're on like the normal website, like if you're on a computer, if you go in the upper right-hand corner, there's a little search box there, and you can search keywords, and you'll find tons and tons of videos. So so I just searched the word ball. All right. So definitely not on the first page. Bear with me here. Not on the second page. Sorry, bear with me. I'm trying to find this. A lot of times the search results are in chronological order, and we did this video a while ago. So we should be getting close here. Might have to fine-tune my search a little bit because we're starting to run dry. All right, I think Secrets is in the title. Let me see if we can get something. Here we go. 10 golf ball secrets they don't want you to know. All right. So I'm going to put this in the chat. And for any of you that are in the weeds about golf balls, like thinking that you need to change golf balls, or you think a golf ball is going to make such a huge difference in your game and things like that, watch this video. It's just not that likely. Like I said, I'm someone who has pretty decent feel, and I'm telling you, I can't tell you the difference between when I hit a Snell golf ball, or if I hit a Pro V1, or if I hit a TaylorMade TP5. These are all good high level golf balls that are long off the tee, low spin, and then around the greens are soft, and you can get some good spin, and they have a nice soft feel to them. That's generally what I recommend, and that's pretty much what all tour players play in action. Now, if you really want to save some money, and you don't care about having the soft feel around the greens, I don't know how much like Pinnacles and Top Flights and stuff like that are. Titleist even makes some like harder cover golf balls, like NXT, AVX. Like, these are lower priced golf balls. But if you ask me, I'd rather have a higher, a little softer ball, and I'd rather get like a Snell or something like that for the same price. So the Snells are going to be like 30 some dollars a dozen. And also with Snell, you can do test packs. Just do a Google search, Snell. I believe the website's snellgolf.com. But the reason why they can sell golf balls cheap is because they don't really advertise. They don't have tour players doing any sponsorships or anything like that. They don't have like a middleman, like where they basically sell all direct to consumer, right? So the balls that you would buy at like PGA Superstore or even Amazon or whatever, this is not direct to consumer. Not always. Sometimes it is. I believe you can buy Snell golf balls on Amazon as well. Amazon's probably not the best example, but like if you go to Walmart and buy a Target, any of these like stores, department stores, physical locations, like you're paying a markup because Target has to make money too. The golf companies, the golf ball company needs to make money, so you're paying a markup. You're not paying that with the Snell golf balls because they're direct to consumer. So check out that video. It's like I said. All right, so let's keep going. So Sam says, my right elbow comes off my hip on the downswing. What's the remedy? Thank you. It doesn't need to stay on the hip. Your right elbow doesn't stay on the hip all the way through. Your right elbow is going to come off of the hip. So it's not a problem that needs remedying. Now, if it's an issue where the elbow, we're really getting it flared out and we're kind of going like this, that's one thing. We're kind of coming over the top. So in that situation, I would do the ball between the elbows drill. So this is just a ball, toy ball that I got from the toy section at Target. Just about a 6-inch diameter ball with some squish to it. If you're using a ball that doesn't have any like squish to it, I'd recommend about like a 4.5-inch ball. I have like a therapy ball that would work too. This is about a 4.5-inch ball. The reason why I say that is that if you get a ball that's too big, one, it won't keep your elbows together enough, and two, it will kind of get in the way, especially if you got stuff running into each other, upstairs. So yeah, this is a great ball to do it. There are training aids out there that you can buy as well, but this is a few dollars. This was probably less than $5 at Target, whereas those training aids are usually at least $50, right? Now, I will say, if you get the Smart Ball, there are some nice features to that. That's the Tour Striker version of this. Basically, the incentives to using that are, one, it comes with a lanyard, so when you drop it, it just goes around your neck, and two, it's inflatable. So this one's not inflatable, or maybe it is. I don't know. You might be able to, but it would be a pain in the butt. Like, there's no easy way to deflate and inflate this, whereas with the smart ball, you can easily deflate it and inflate it and keep it in your bag. But anyway, put it between your elbows. We're going to keep it between the elbows throughout the entire swing, right? So that will help you to, that's a great drill to help you with that. All right, let's keep going here. So Jack says, Q, high knuckle dragger feel with driver versus iron. Clay seems to always refer to irons, but I'm confused as to whether it applies to driver. Yes, it applies to driver. Knuckle dragger is really just about staying in your posture and having lag, right? So if I have the feeling that I'm getting my knuckles close to the ground, right? Well, if I get my knuckles close to the ground, I throw it out the club, I'm going to hit the ground, right? If I stand up, then I'm not getting my knuckles close to the ground. So I want to have that same feeling with the driver as well. It's just that the ball position is going to be more forward, so the club's going to be a little bit more released by the time I get to it. But now, if you find that you're hitting the ball too low or something like that with the driver, and you look at your driver swing and you're like this, you got your hands way in front like that, then you can feel a little bit less of that. Or you can add some loft to your driver to get that D-loft back. Because if you look at players like Dustin Johnson and Jon Rahm, that's what they look like at impact. And a lot of people don't realize this, but they use high lofted drivers. I think Dustin Johnson, uses about a 10.5 degree driver. And Jon Rahm, I can't remember, but it was a little bit, it might have been like 11 degrees, right? And the reason is because they have so much shaft lean that if they used like an 8 or 9 degree driver that a lot of tour players use, they would just hit the ball way too low. They wouldn't be able to get the ball up in the air. So yeah, if you find yourself in that situation, good problem to have, too much shaft lean, then you either want to not have as much shaft lean, let the club release a little bit more, or you can add a little bit of loft to your driver. Like I said, most drivers these days are adjustable. You can go up the loft. If not, you may want to invest in a higher lofted driver if you're in that situation. All right, let's keep going. Scott B says, hello, new member here. Welcome, Scott. Probably wrong place to ask, but looking for a tracking number for a swing aid bought when buying all access thing. Yeah, unfortunately, this is not the place to ask. So this is like instruction questions. You want to contact our support team. And, maybe I would also check your email. I'm not involved with the selling of the training aids or anything like that, or the process. I don't know exactly, if there's a third party that we're using or what, but yeah, just contact our support team. So if you're on the website, if you look in the lower right-hand corner, you'll see a little help thing. If you select that, our support team who deals with that kind of stuff. This is the place if you got golf questions. I can't help you. Unfortunately, I wish I could help you, but I can't help you with that. But our support team certainly can, and they're pretty responsive. They'll get back to you within 24 business hours. Usually, it's a lot quicker than that. All right, let's keep going. So Ed D says, "Hi Q. When you set up to hit a fade or a draw, can you talk about how to gauge where to aim the face in relation to your now open face stance to bring the ball back to the target line?" Yeah, so what we want to understand is that the ball is going to start mostly in the direction of the club face, and that's going to curve away from the club path, right? So, and a lot of this just depends on how much you want the ball to curve, right? But let's say this is my target line, right? Let's say I'm going to set it to hit a fade. It's just going to be the opposite for a draw, right? And let's assume that your natural tendency is just straight, right? Because that's also the assumption. Because when I set up to hit a draw, I just set up straight, right? Because my natural tendency is to swing from the inside with the face a little bit open to my target, but close to my path to produce a draw that starts to the right of the target and curve to the left, right? So everybody's going to be a little bit different on their setup. This just depends on what their natural tendency is. So, for example, those of you who his natural tendency is maybe to fade. Well, what I'm going to go over here is probably just going to make you fade it more, right? And if your natural tendency is to hit a draw, what I go over here may make you hit it straight, right? So it's not the same for everybody, but this is just assuming that you're like a robot and you just hit everything straight and you're just wanting to make an adjustment to be able to fade or draw. So if I'm hitting a fade, what I want to understand is that the ball, the starting direction of the ball, that is going to be mostly in the direction of my club face. It's about 80% of the direction of my club face, right? And then it's going to curve away from my club path, right? So if I'm wanting to hit a fade and I want the ball to start to the left of my target, then what I need to do is I actually need to have my face set up a little bit to the left of my target. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up my feet to be even more left of the target, right? So you can think of it this way. If I want to put numbers on it, I can say, okay, my face is 2 degrees closed, and my stance is 4 degrees closed, right? So that's going to assume that my club path is going to be along my toe line, right? So if I do that, then that's going to produce a ball that starts 2 degrees to the left and fades back to the right. Now for a draw, let's say I really want to put a draw on this one, right? Well, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to aim my club face in the direction I want my ball to start. And then I'm going to change my club or my stance to be basically double that. So if I want to have this ball start 5 degrees to the right, then I'm going to have my feet 10 degrees to the right. That's going to produce a ball flight that's going to start 5 degrees to the right, and draw back to the left. So that's basically, what it comes down to. Now, I've heard people say, aim your face at the target and then aim your feet at where you want to start. That can work as well, but that from the physical standpoint, like if you literally did that, if you literally came into contact and your club face was pointing at the target and then your feet were pointing where you wanted the ball to start, what would happen is, so let's say I set up for a fade and did it that way. What if I literally did that at impact? What would happen is my ball would start at the target, because remember, the ball is going to start almost entirely in the direction of the club face, right? So if I set up with my face square and then I actually come into impact with my face square to that target, that's where my ball is going to start, but then it's going to fade away from the target, right? So that's not, that can work for you, but what we want to understand is that just because you're setting up that way, that doesn't mean that that's actually what's happening. So tinker around with it. Like I said, everybody's going to be a little bit different. For me, to hit a draw, I just set up square, right? I set up dead square with the target, with my toe line directly square with the target, and I naturally kind of come in with that kind of, with basically a draw swing, right? You might be a little bit different. So play around with it. You can certainly play around with pointing the face at the target and then pointing your feet where you want to start it. And if you find that that's not quite getting you what you want, you can tinker around with it between what I was doing and that. What I was doing is like assuming like you're a robot, and if I set up with the face pointing in a certain direction, that's where my club face is going to be at impact, and my toe line, that's exactly where my club path is going to go, right? If that's legitimately what's going to happen, then that's going to work as well. So you just have to play around with it to find what works best for you. But what we have to understand, we just want to understand the ball's going to start in the direction of the club face and then curve away from the club path. So you just want to set up in a way that allows you to do that. So if I'm trying to hit a fade, typically what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up pretty far left, and I'm going to basically hold off the face through contact, right? I'm basically holding off the face through the target line. And the reason why I do that is I'm a natural drawer of the ball. When I do that, that ball starts to the left of the target and then fades back. I'm not very great at fades with the iron, so I don't do that a ton. But I do practice it because, I want to be, I mostly almost entirely hit draws with my irons out on the course. So I practice both fades and draws, so that way I don't get too far. I don't get the overdraw going. But that's what I do to hit a fade, but that's what works best for me. You have to play around to find what works best for you. All right. So Jack says, Q, are you saying on driver swing that you want to get low to the ground and knuckle drag, get low to the ground? Thanks. basically what the knuckle dragger is it's an exaggeration to help you get lag and stay in your posture. So do you want lag and to stay in your posture with your driver? Yes, absolutely you do. Do you literally want to drag your knuckles on the ground? No, of course not. Right? It's an exaggerated feel to help you to stay in your posture and get more lag. That's what it is. So we want to stay in our posture with both irons and driver and get lag with both irons and driver. All right, so Mickey S says, you address the ball with your club behind the ball. That defines the low point of your swing. But to hit the ball and then the turf, you have to move your swing and the geometry toward a few inches. How do you do this and continue to do this consistently? So first of all, the low point hasn't happened yet at address, so it doesn't really define anything. So that's kind of a flawed logic there. The low point is not defined by how you set up to the ball. It's only defined by how the club works down to the ball, right? So when I'm standing here like this, there is no low point yet. The low point hasn't happened. My club sitting here on the ground has nothing to do with the low point, right? So it only matters how the club's coming through. Now, there's lots of ways to move around the low point of your swing, right? To get it to be more forward, more back, higher, lower, right? There's lots of ways to do that, but what we want to understand first is that the where the club is sitting at address has nothing to do with it. It really doesn't have anything to do. It only matters how the club is working down. All right. So that's the first part of it. So how can I get it to be more forward? Well, one thing is with the compression line. So for those of you who aren't familiar with what that is, actually, let's go back. Let's define what low point is. All right. So low point is the point where the club reaches the bottom of the arc and starts to work back up. When they talk about it, what they're talking about typically is a plus or a minus, right? So if I have a positive low point, that's in relationship to the ball. If I have a positive 4 low point, that means that the low point of my swing is 4 inches in front of the ball. If I have a negative low point, let's say it's negative 3 low point, that means that my low point is happening 3 inches before the ball. So it's in relationship to the ball. So like I said, another way we can change where the low point is in relationship to the ball is to change where the ball is. Now that has a small amount of, from what you talked about before, like defining, defined by how you set up. It might have a small influence on it, right? But that, because I'm set up like this, that doesn't mean that that's where my low point's going to be, right? My low point, I can set up like this and go like that. I can set up like this and go like this, right? And move my low point all around. So it's only defined by how the club works through, but we can get the low point to be in relation to the ball more forward or more behind it by moving the ball around. So this is why I recommend that most golfers, now everybody's a little bit different. Like I said, you can have the ball a little bit more forward, a little bit more back. A lot of it depends on your swing. I'll give you an example here in a second, but I think most recreational golfers are going to benefit from having the ball position be middle to just forward of the middle of the stance. So if I take an alignment stick and I put this right through the middle of my stance here, right? I would want to see basically, if that's equally right in the middle of my stance, I'd like to see basically the back of that ball on that stick. That's a good ball position for about anybody for shots that are off the ground. Now, for me, I do a little bit different. Most of the shots I hit off the ground are in this ball position. Some of it depends on the kind of shot that I'm trying to hit. If I'm trying to hit it higher or lower. So, for example, for a wedge, I'll actually play a wedge a little bit back. So it'll be where it's just a little bit back of my stance, more like this. The reason why I do that is that gets my low point more forward in relationship to the ball, right? And it helps me to hit down. If your low point's more forward, you're going to generally hit more down on the ball. That's going to help you to hit it lower and have more spin. that's what you want with a wedge, right? You want lower for control. If you ever go to like a professional event and watch them hit wedges, they hit them pretty low. They launch them about 30 degrees typically, and they have a lot of spin. That's how you control it. That's kind of like the magic launch angle with those wedges. So that's ideally what I do with that. Now, if I'm hitting, if I want to hit a little bit higher shot, I'll play it, maybe a ball forward of that. But I don't, I find that I see a lot of people, they'll get like a hybrid in their hand and the ball position is way up here. And then they chunk it and thin it all the time or come way over the top. Well, part of that's because of your ball position. The ball position is too far forward, because then the low point, in order to get the low point to be in front of the ball where it needs to be, 3 or 4 inches, you would really have to really slide your body forward to do that. And nobody does that, right? Nobody's coming into the hybrid and hitting it like this. I haven't seen that. I'm sure there's probably some people that do, but nothing I've ever seen on the lesson tee, to be honest. So yeah, I like to see that ball position, just forward of the middle, even for those hybrids. If you can play it, now here's the thing: if you can play it forward and you can get the club coming down the ball and nice and shallow, nice from the inside, and make great ball first contact, then by all means do that. Because like I said, Dustin Johnson, he has a ton of shaft lean. He plays the ball more forward. When you have more shaft lean, the club bottoms out later, right? And when you have more shaft lean, you have less loft. So having the ball a little bit more forward helps him get the ball up in the air a little bit more. Otherwise, he'd probably hit everything way too low, right? So, but I would say very, very few golfers with that problem. Even professional golfers, he's one of a few that even have that problem. Not very many people have that problem. So him, John Rahm, Joaquin Niemann, those would be like a couple examples of guys that have a ton of shaft lean and play the ball a little bit more forward because of that. But that ball position would be kind of the first piece. If you struggle, especially with those longer irons, because I hear it all the time. People tell me, like, I hit my 8-iron, great. But then I get to my hybrids, I get to my fairway woods, and I chunk and thin all of them. And then I see a video of them, and they've got the fairway wood pushed way far forward, and really you just change the ball position. All of a sudden you're striping the 3 wood too. So yeah, ball position's a big one. It's just the fundamentals, guys. And a lot of times that's what it comes down to. It's not something crazy that you're doing. A lot of times it just comes down to fundamentals, right? Just the grip, your ball position, your setup, and all that kind of stuff. So that's one way that you can move the bottom, where the bottom of your swing is. The other, I started talking about it, but your compression line, those of you who aren't familiar, the compression line is part of the top speed golf system. It's the 4th piece of the top speed golf system. And this is the line that we draw from the lead ankle, lead hip, and lead shoulder. And we want that to be in a straight line at impact. And for an iron, I actually like to see it pretty vertical to maybe angled away a degree or 2. And again, a lot of this depends on some other factors. So like Dustin Johnson, he's a little bit more angled away, but he can be because of how much shaft lean he has. So you got to find the right balance that moves the low point in the right spot. But, most golfers are going to benefit from having that compression line more straight up and down. So if you're looking at your swing on video and you're looking like this with an iron shot where your lead shoulder is much behind your ankle, then you probably should work. If you're struggling with chunks and thins and tops and things like that, or coming over the top, then I'd recommend getting that to be, getting that compression line a little bit more vertical. So that's one piece there. Another piece is, how the club is working down. Is it too much from the inside or outside? So if you think about it this way, if I swing, let's imagine I'm standing at home plate on a baseball field, right? I got the pitcher right here, straight in front of me. First base is that way, third base is that way. So if I take this club and I swing it in the direction I'm swinging, that's 45 degrees out to the right in the direction of first base. And it might even be a good exercise if you got a club handy to do this yourself. But if you watch here, you can see how my club is bottoming out more back here, right? So if I over shallow out the club and swing too much from the inside, that may lead to some chunk shots because that moves my low point farther back away from the ball. On the other side of that, this is a big reason why a lot of people come down steep, is that if I swing toward third base, well, now look where my club is bottoming out. It's bottoming out more over here, right? So a lot of people kind of hang back in the swing or have the ball position too far forward, and then they'll swing over the top to make up for that. So that way they can more easily make ball first contact. The problem is that they've had to come over the top to do it. And as we all know, that typically does not lead to great results, right? You're gonna hit poles, pull hooks, slices, the works. That's if you make great contact. A lot of times you don't make great contact if you do that either. So if you're excessively from the inside or excessively out to in, that can mess with the low point as well. Another thing is the release, right? So now before I talk about this, I just want to put a disclaimer out there. This is not the number one thing everyone needs to do to work on to get the low point in the right place. There's several reasons for it. One is, almost everybody releases the club early, compared to pros. Almost everyone does, right? It's not a super intuitive thing to do to release the club later. It's more intuitive to release it a little bit sooner, right? And so almost everybody has this problem, and it's a very sexy thing to work on, right? The problem is that it takes a lot. It's the most difficult thing to change in the golf swing, and it takes time to change it. A lot of these things that I've talked about, moving your ball position, swinging less into out, or getting your compression line more vertical. These are things that, in a single range session, you could remedy. You're not remedying your early release in a single range session or 3 range sessions. It's going to take depending on how bad it is or how early it is, it's going to take a lot of time in repetition and patience. So don't take this to say, okay, this is what I need to do to go fix my chunk shots. It absolutely isn't. You can have an early release, and as long as you have good setup with the ball position, everything, you're not swinging too much from the inside, and you're getting a good weight shift forward, you will absolutely make ball first contact. It's not always the release, right? So I just want to say that because I know how a lot of students are, and that's the one thing that I see a lot of people gravitate to because it's the most interesting thing, and it's the thing that's been bugging you about your golf swing ever since you looked at it on video, right? So, but unfortunately, it's not the thing that I would recommend going to work on to fix it, because it just takes a long time. But if you think about it, if I'm standing here and I release it, I'm going to hit the ground. If I here and I release it way later, I can hit the ground way up there, right? So yes, the release definitely changes where you're hitting the ground, but it's not the thing that I would recommend that you go out and do and work on. That's the thing that if you've gotten to, typically the release is something that lower handicap golfers work on because everything else is kind of in the right place. It's the last piece of the top speed golf system. If you got 4 out of the 5 pieces of the top speed golf system down and you're shallowing out the club and you have club head speed, right, you're going to be a low handicap golfer, right? You're going to be single digits, low single digits probably. And then the release is kind of the last thing that you tie a bow on. But I see too many 15, 20, even 10 plus handicap golfers working on the release when it's probably not the thing that they need to be working on. They need to be working on the other things that lead into that. All right, let's keep going. So Jack says, Q, you recently did a good job with a thorough explanation of the right and wrong way to do the step drill. Can you please post this on the website somewhere? Thanks. No, I mean, I don't. I can talk to Clay maybe about doing a video on it in the future, but I don't have something that. I mean, technically, it is on the if it's if I did it in office hours, it is on the website. You just have to do some digging to find it. All the office hours are archived, so if you go to the instruction tab on the website and you go to the instruction tab, then you go to office hours, and then from there, office hours highlights. So on the office hours highlights page, or you can just go to any email that you've gotten on a Friday from us that has the office hours highlights in it. If you select that link, it will take you directly to that page. It's not the easiest page to navigate to. Unfortunately, they're working on getting the navigation better on the website. But anyway, probably be easier to go from the email. But if you go to that page and you scroll to the bottom of the office hours highlights page, you will find the archived office hours. And basically, it's just like a YouTube playlist, and you can go to, I think it has the last 500, episodes on there or whatever. So I can talk about that real quick here, and then you can just kind of, remember that, hey, this, on July 29th at about the, this is probably going to be about the 50-minute mark, right, of the office hours. Q talked about, the things that with the step drill, things that go wrong. So I'll go through that real quick here. So the first thing, and for those who aren't familiar with what the step drill is, this is a great weight shift drill. If you stay on your back foot, or if you swing all arms, you feel like, and you're not really getting any power from your leg, this is a great drill to do because it helps with kind of the sequencing of everything and getting a proper weight shift toward the target. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with our feet together, close together here. Club head doesn't have to be exact, club head or so apart. And what I like to do is I actually like to point the club in front because it helps to get a little bit of flow with it. And what we want to understand with the step drill is that the pressure that we put into the ground with our feet has to precede the motion of the club, right? So if I want the club to go that way, I need to put pressure into my right foot, my trail foot initially, right? So it's pressure, throw. If I want the club to start the downswing, to start moving in that direction, then I need to put pressure in my lead foot to start that, right? So the pressure we put in the ground precedes the motion of the club, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my feet together. I'm going to have the club in front to initiate the swing. And again, we're not hitting a ball doing this. To initiate the swing, I'm going to shift pressure into my trail side. As soon as I feel that pressure, I'm going to start throwing the club back. A good way to think about this is to imagine this club weighs like 100 pounds, right? And if the club weighs 100 pounds, you're going to use your body to swing it. You're just not going to be, unless you're just a really strong person. If you're like a world's strongest man or something like that, and the club feels like a toothpick to you, that'd be one thing. But most people, that's not gonna work, right? So we want to feel like this club is really heavy, and I need to use my body to swing it, right? So if you ever watch like a kid swing a golf club, it always looks great. They get their hips opening up, they're sequencing really well. You know why? Because the golf club weighs 100 pounds to them, right? But for us, as we grow up, we get stronger, and also they make these clubs lighter, so that way we can. What in the world? Okay, well, somebody just posted a ton of stuff on here. Anyway, we may not be able to get to that today, Dan. Just a heads up. But anyway, but we kind of lost my train of thought because I saw that big, the huge message just show up in the chat there. But anyway, yeah. So if you watch a kid swing it, like it looks great, right? Because they have to use their body, because they make these clubs really light and we're strong, right? A lot of times we just kind of use our arms and the wrists, right? And we want to use our arms and wrists, but we want to use the body as well to be able to create momentum, to create more space for our arms and our wrists. Most of your speed is going to come from your arms and your wrists, but not all of it, right? If I only if I only swing the club like this, right, that's not going to be very fast. But if I add my body turn to it and I push into the ground to speed up my arms, that's going to be even faster, right? So that's what we're here to try to do with this. We're trying to get more force along the hands to be able to swing this club. So pressure into the ground precedes the motion of the club. And one of the mistakes that I see people make is they start the step too early or too soon, right? So they'll be here and they'll start the step from there, or they'll start swinging it up and then they'll wait till they get to the top and step, right? When the timing of the step, as soon as your hands pass your legs, so right about in this area. Doesn't have to be perfect. If it's here or here, anywhere in that range is fine. That's why I like to start with the club in front, because I can press into the ground, and then I can really, if I start here, then my hands are passing my legs so fast, right? But if I start here and I push in the ground and then I throw it back, then it's like, okay, I got time, right, to do that. So that's why I like to start with the club in front to get a little bit of flow. So press into the ground, throw the club back. As I throw the club back, as I get into this area, that's when I want to start my step, right? The next mistake that I see is people landing at the wrong time, right? So we want to land, we want that lead foot to land as we're getting to the top. So that way my momentum's going forward, and that way I'm starting the downswing with more pressure. What I see some people do is they'll start the step at the right time, but then they'll just go like this, right? They just step so early. Or they'll get up here, then they start down, and then they put the foot down, right? So we want that timing of that to be as we're getting up to the top. So that's going to look like this, right? So I'm landing, getting to the top, and now from here, now I can push in the ground and start my downswing, right? So that's another mistake that I see. Another mistake that I see is what's called dipping the toes in the water. So that's where we go up to the top and we don't actually get our momentum going forward. We do this number, right? Where I'm just setting my leg out there. Well, that's not getting more momentum going forward, right? So a way to remedy this is to feel like the hips stay between the feet, right? So if I go like this, stay equally between the feet, that is. If I go like this, you can see my hips are much more over my right side than my left side, right? I want to be, if my foot is way over here, I want my hips to be here, right? So if you look at me do the drill correctly, you can see how my hips, if my leg goes forward, my hips are going to go forward, right? So another mistake that I see is people going too far with the step or too narrow. So they might go like this, or they might step way too far, right? So we want to step to where our normal stance would be. So a way you can remedy this is to take your normal stance, and then you can put like a T on each side of your foot, and then just make a note, okay, I don't want to step past that T, right? Now, if you step a little bit farther, that's okay. But that's where we go. When we go too far, you know, if you get really, really kind of like you're doing the splits, it makes it really, really difficult to turn through, and you're maybe risking injuring yourself as well. All right, Dan. We got about 3 minutes left. I'll try to answer this as much as I can. So low handicap golfer there. I watched 2 strategy videos on the website, G036, drop your scores up to 3 strokes. Both are good, but they are not consistent. Please fix specifically where to aim when inside 150 yards. Yardages are different to each video. Here is a summary, but again, both videos are not consistent. Par 4 and 5 tee box strategy. Aim at center point of dispersion pattern. 3-wood hybrid long irons, 40-yard par 3s. So here's the thing too. It's not well, one thing, these videos are not going to be fixed. I can tell you that right now. They will not be fixed. We don't go in and just change videos or whatever. They might get taken off of the website, but they're not going to be like changed. So I'll start with that. And also, where you I know you're a low handicap golfer, but it also depends on, like, some low handicap golfers are well, also your definition of a low handicap golfer might be different than mine. So I'd say a low handicap golfer is going to be a scratch or better. I don't know if you're in that category, but also within that, like, there's some that are much better at hitting irons, and vice versa. So it's not going to necessarily be the same for everybody. And you can kind of try out things that work out the best for you. But 150 yards, aim at the middle. I think that's a good, I would say, if you don't have a wedge in your hand, generally speaking, I would say you are aiming at the middle of the green. That's what I would say. I think that's a good trade-off there. I think someone is hacking you. All right, Bland, why would you say someone's hacking me? Anyway, so yeah, if you don't have a wedge in your hand, you can't really be aggressive. Now, here's the thing too. If you're if you've just been really dialed in with your wedges or with your or with anything, you can be a little bit more aggressive too. I mean, that's kind of what I would say to that. So it's not, you kind of have to come up with your own system is what I would recommend doing. Putting, yeah, 3 foot circle for sure from 20 feet. Um, 10 to 20 feet. I would, if it's over 20 feet, that's more like you're just trying to two putt. If you one putt, that's just like that's a, that's just luck for the most part because the imperfections in the green and all that stuff. Obviously, there's skill to putting, but um, you know, if you're making a 20-footer, a lot of that's going to be luck. You could hit a perfect putt and hit it. You can hit a putt the exact same way, and you'll make it one time and not the other time. So, I don't. I would say 10 to 20 feet is not a leave it short area. I would say it's, now again, it depends on the player. If you're someone who's running, you find that you're making sure that you get everything past it on like an 18-footer, but then you're finding from 10 to 20 foot, you're three putting a lot because those putts are going 5-6 feet past, then you can adjust it. So I think more of like strategy and things like that. It's not as cut and dry. A lot of it's depending on the player, your ability levels, what you're good at. If you're a great putter, it could be different. If you're a poor lag putter, it might be 15 feet and beyond. You're trying to get in a 3-foot circle, right? I would say for about anybody, for the most part, you're trying to get 10 feet, 10 foot and less putts to the hole. Beyond 15 feet, that's where it's more luck than anything else. It really depends on the greens too, the greens that you're playing. So, I wish it was a cut and dry thing. I think what you have listed there, those are all great things. I think those are good starting points. If you want to go with those. You didn't mention what was conflicting, but no room to stay away from the penalty layup. Well, you wouldn't necessarily have to lay up, but you could go to like miss in the right area. So like, if there's no room 20 yards away, you don't necessarily have to lay up. I mean, I would say most of it is, common sense for the most part, like the strategy. Try to keep it. Don't worry about the fairway as much. That's not necessarily where you need to hit it. I would look at where the trouble is and basically try to hit it equally between the trouble, right? That's basically what I would recommend there. And then for approach shots, if you don't have a wedge in your hand, then you should be aiming at the middle of the green or wherever the so let's say there's water on the right hand, like right on the edge of the green, but there's nothing to the left. Well, I would skew toward the left a little bit to make sure that we're not getting too close to the water, right? That sort of thing. I would say a lot of it's just common sense. I think most people struggle, because they're way too aggressive on their they're way too aggressive on their iron shots, right? And then they're, that gets them in trouble. So, but yeah, I would say I agree mostly with what everything you're saying there. But yeah, Blaine, if you want to let me know why you think someone's hacking me, I'd be interested to know. There's no signs of it, but yeah, that I can see, but I'm not an expert in this kind of stuff. But anyway, everybody have a good rest of your day, and I'll talk to you next time.